Hello friends, welcome back again. This is a part 2 of the topic nutritional considerations and feeding of periparturient dairy cows. So those students who have not seen first part, they are requested to go through the first part and then they can join to the second part. Yesterday I make one video on this topic, but I make few mistakes, so I will try to rectify those mistakes in this video. So let's start with this video. Now up till now we have seen that periparturient condition is a transitional phase where the pregnant non-lactating cow changes its state to the non-pregnant lactating condition. Non-pregnant lactating condition. So during this phase, animal has to parturate. So it requires huge energy for parturition. As well as immediately parturition, animal starts lactation, lactogenesis. Again, for this again a huge energy is required. And being in the last stage of pregnancy, due to the distension in the stomach because of the increased size of fetus, dry matter intake, nutrient intake of the animal reduces, and therefore animal may suffer from nutrient deficiency. So by natural physiology, some of the adaptive changes to support the fetal demand and onset of lactation that takes place during this stage. First one is increased lipolysis. Generally animal body obtains energy from the glucose, that is carbohydrate, but in this case when there is a huge demand for the energies in the body, lipolysis increases, that is a breakdown of fat. Fat is used as source of energy. We know that the maximum energy is obtained from the fat, but it is stored form of energy. But during this critical condition, the lipolysis increases, fats are broken down and they are used for energy purpose. Decreased lipogenesis, that means fat synthesis. During this phase, the fat synthesis or storing of fat will not occur in the body, but whatever the stored fat is there, it will be decreased. Next is increased gluconeogenesis, that is glucose synthesis. Glucose is used for energy purpose, but in this case glucose synthesis also increases to satisfy the demand of energy. Next is increased glycogenolysis, that means breakdown of glycogen to provide the energy. We know that the energy is stored in the form of fat, and sometimes it is stored in the form of carbohydrate, and that is the glycogen. And when there is high demand in the body, glycogenolysis takes place. That means the glycogen is broken down and it is converted to the glucose, and from the glucose again the energy is obtained. Increased use of lipids and decreased glucose use as an energy source. Now this is the marked difference is observed in the transition phase. Instead of glucose, animal depends more on lipids. From the lipids more energy is obtained, and that is required for the parturition process, lactogenesis process. Increased mobilization of protein reserves, as well as along with the fats, proteins are also used for the energy purpose. Increase absorption of minerals and mobilization of mineral reserves. Okay, this is also another physiological change, that the minerals in the bones, because maximum calcium is present in the milk, and every day there is a calcium is being leached out from the body through the milk, and to satisfy this requirement, the minerals in the bone, they are mobilized. Okay, so these are the few of the adaptive changes that take place during this transition stage. Now we'll see the first metabolic disorder, that is the ketosis and fatty liver in the transition stage. Ketosis is a condition marked by increased level of ketone bodies with or without clinical signs. It causes severe economic losses through reduction in the milk yield. Now, 1 week prepartum and 1 week postpartum means from the date of parturition, 1 week, that is 7 days before and 7 days after parturition, it is a very critical period for the animal. Energy requirement is high and it is exceeding to the dietary energy supply, and that's why we have seen that adipose tissues where the fat is stored, that fat is mobilized, as well as the glycogen which is stored carbohydrate in the liver, it is converted to the glucose by glycogenolysis process. Okay, so increased lipolysis and reduced lipogenesis is also observed. Means lipogenesis will not take place, but lipolysis will take place. Okay, NEFA, this is used as a source of energy. So lipolysis, after lipolysis, the NEFA, they are released in the bloodstream. NEFA means non-esterified fatty acids, and they are used as source of energy, as well as they are used for synthesis of milk fat, development of mammary gland, and again it is used in the liver for converting into the glucose. Now here you can see this is a glycolysis and TCA cycle. Now we know that the glucose is broken down to the pyruvate, that is called as glycolysis process, and when this during this transition phase where the glucose is deficient, means when there is a deficiency of carbohydrate, the fats are mobilized. Okay, but the ketone bodies, in the absence of oxaloacetate, excess acetyl CoA, it remains in the blood, and that's why the excess ketone bodies are reserved. So what is ketosis? It indicates there is a presence of ketone bodies in milk, urine and blood, as well as there is a negative impact on the immune system, and that's why you will find that being there is a more demand for energy, negative energy balance, it takes place. Okay, but during this stage it is desirable that decrease in the fatty acid or fat mobilization. A few researchers have shown that this fatty acid mobilization can be reduced by niacin supplementation at 3 to 12 grams per day, as well as Dr. Garg has reported in 2012 supplementation of 100 gram per head per day bypass fat with or without 10 grams per head per day rumen protected choline in basal diet. Significant reduction in serum NEFA has been observed. That means lipolysis reduces and glucose utilization increases. Choline is required for synthesis of LDLP, that is low density lipoproteins. Next is very important disorder, metabolic disorder found in high yielding dairy animals, that is SARA, subacute rumen acidosis. SARA is a common metabolic disorder in high yielding dairy cows that receive highly digestible diets, rich in non-structural carbohydrates and high in it has a high economic impact. Non-structural carbohydrates means this is the particularly the concentrates which does not contains more fibers. Okay, so what are the causes for this particular disease or disorder? In the advanced pregnancy, to satisfy the nutrient requirement, high concentrate diet is fed to the animals. Because there is a decrease in the dry matter intake of the animals, animal body is not getting enough nutrients, and therefore to satisfy this nutritional requirement we are feeding high concentrate. This is the high density that we are providing to the animals. So these concentrates, these are the rapidly fermentable carbohydrates. We know that in the ruminants, major digestion takes place by the microbial digestion in the rumen, and here in the rumen there are number of microorganisms are present, and in the concentrate mixture we know that it contains non-structural carbohydrates which can be easily fermented, and feeding of more grains and less fibers, reducing forage particle size, reduces time for chewing and rumination, by which enough saliva is not get mixed in the bolus in that particular food material, and by which the rumen pH it reduces to 5.6 to 5.8. That means it becomes acidic, and if it remains for a longer period, for 3 to 5 hours per day, it indicates the condition of SARA, subacute rumen acidosis. So in the SARA, what is being observed, that is the reduced food intake, reduced milk production and compromised health. That means the immune system is also disturbed. Rumenitis, rumen digestion is disturbed. Sometimes diarrhea, loose motions are also observed. Rumen mucosal damage is also observed. Metabolic acidosis, laminitis, bloat, abomasal ulcer, liver abscesses, reproductive disorder including retained placenta. So Pfizer reported huge losses due to SARA in Europe and USA, and SARA incidences reported 19% and 26% in early and mid lactation. So particularly in high yielding animals, this particular disorder is very common. Now how to overcome this problem? So what is the treatment? 150 grams sodium bicarbonate we have to add in the diet of the animal. So what will help? How will the sodium bicarbonate will help? Now it will help to maintain the ruminal pH. Sodium bicarbonate is alkali and it will increase the ruminal pH, and it will be around neutral pH, and by that the rumen microflora will grow, and definitely proper rumen fermentation pattern can be maintained. So this will positively affect on the milk yield, feed intake and milk fat percentage. Supplementation with live yeast, stabilization of rumen pH, use of lactic acid by lactate utilizing bacteria. So we can use some microbial cultures like yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which will help for stabilization of ruminal pH, as well as there will be increase in the lactic acid utilizing bacteria. So ultimately the ruminal pH will be neutral. So Saccharomyces cerevisiae, that is Saccharomyces cerevisiae, these are believed to eliminate traces of oxygen in rumen. Now we know that in the rumen only anaerobic fermentation takes place. Only those bacteria which grow under the anaerobic conditions, they are sustaining in the rumen. But sometimes if there is a presence of oxygen, these bacteria, these microorganisms will immediately die. To make it anaerobic and to eliminate the oxygen in the rumen, this yeast particularly can be utilized. Oxygen sensitive bacteria will grow rapidly. So Enterococcus faecium, Lactobacillus plantarum, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, so this can be added as particularly is 2 grams per cow per day to maintain the rumen pH. Now next metabolic disorder is Milk fever, it is also called as hypocalcemia, that is a deficiency of calcium in the blood serum. It is also called as parturient paresis. Milk fever is a metabolic disorder, affects dairy animals usually within 1 or 2 days of calving. After calving, within 1 or 2 days, milk fever may be observed, resulting in huge reduction in the milk production and becomes economically most important, because there is a great loss to the milk production, great loss to the livestock farm owner, and it is causing great economic losses. So earlier indigenous cattle, we have seen that their milk yield is less, but now we are going for crossbreeding, and because of the crossbreeding, the crossbred cows are able to produce a huge quantity of milk. Milk contains a huge quantity of calcium, and therefore when we are milking the animals, that means it is draining huge calcium through the body. And in those conditions, if the sufficient calcium is not present in the diet, the calcium present in the bones will be mobilized, and the milk fever, that disorder occurs. So that is you can say that is the calcium homeostasis process is referred. In normal condition, calcium contained in the blood is about 8 to 10 milligram per deciliter, but under the hypocalcemia condition, it reduces below 5 milligram per deciliter. In 10 liters of colostrum, we can see that there is a loss of 23 gram calcium. So in the total blood of the animal, if you see in the plasma pool, total calcium circulating is 1.5 to 2 gram, and if in the 10 liters of colostrum 23 grams of calcium is leaching, that means there is a huge mobilization of calcium from the bones for synthesis of milk, and milk calcium takes place. Very low calcium is responsible for neuromuscular dysfunction, that means the muscles becomes dysfunction, and it causes parturient paresis, means the animal lie down on the ground and it is unable to stand up. It loses its consciousness and it goes in the coma, and if it is not treated properly, a death may be observed. So this condition, it depends on the age, breed, dietary calcium content, calcium and phosphorus ratio, particularly in the ration. Then DCAD means dietary cation and anion differences, sodium and potassium. So when if we are adding more sodium and potassium in the diet, they get fully absorbed, but it hinders or it obstructs the absorption of calcium and magnesium in the body. So sodium and potassium, it interferes calcium and magnesium absorption. So we have to provide the diet which is low in the sodium and potassium. Green succulents and silages that we can add in the diet of animals. We can add magnesium sulfate and magnesium chloride so that there will not be deficiency of magnesium. Low level of calcium 10 days before calving stimulate parathyroid hormone. Okay, some of the physiological changes that takes place in the body, and ultimately there is a deficiency of huge deficiency of calcium in the body, which results in the muscular dysfunction, and by which we can see the blood calcium level, if goes below 5 milligram per deciliter, the milk fever condition is observed. So the scientist Thirunavu Kasaru in 2010 has observed that prevalence of disease 13.67% and 11.99% in cattle and buffalo respectively in Tamil Nadu, and has reported extrapolated loss of rupees 40.62 crores due to milk fever in the state. So this is very important metabolic disorder, and this problem has to be addressed properly by having proper feeding strategies. Now that feeding strategies we will study further. So here in case of hypomagnesia, that is also called as another metabolic disorder, it is also called as grass tetany. Because of deficiency of magnesium, and it appears at 1 to 2 weeks of lactation. After lactation, within 1 or 2 weeks, due to deficiency of magnesium, this metabolic disorder is observed. Cows are grazing on lush green pasture after some rain showers in the rainy season, when there is growth of green pastures, and the animal is consuming this huge amount of green pasture, and sometimes in that case deficiency of magnesium may be observed. Next very popular, very common metabolic disorder is the mastitis. Around parturition, the mastitis risk is very high. That means this is again a disease of periparturient dairy cows. As a mammary secretion changes to the colostrum, lactoferrin concentration declines. In the teat, the keratin plug is present to obstruct the entry of microorganism in the udder. During dry period, this keratin plug is present, but about 7 to 10 days before parturition, this keratin plug it get removed, and it becomes easier for microorganisms to enter inside the udder, that is a milk synthesis gland. Now this lactoferrin is a multifunctional protein of transferrin family. Lactoferrin is a globular glycoprotein. It belongs to innate immune system. That means it is having antibacterial, antiviral, antiparasitic, catalytic, anti-cancer and anti-allergic system, and the properties are having for this lactoferrin. But in the absence of this lactoferrin, the bacteria, particularly streptococci, staphylococci and gram-negative rod can cause the infection. So when this bacteria enters inside the udder, they causes the infection to the udder. Now there are types of mastitis, clinical and subclinical mastitis. What is subclinical mastitis? The presence of infection without apparent signs of local inflammation. That means the bacteria are present in the udder, but we are not seeing any clinical signs of this mastitis. Transient episodes of abnormal milk, udder inflammation may appear. Infection for 2 months or more is treated as a chronic. Now clinical mastitis, inflammatory response to infection causing visible abnormal milk, that is color, fibrin clots, blood clots, they are observed in the milk. Inflammation increases swelling, heat, pain, redness. So we can treat this particular mastitis with some antibiotics, particularly amoxicillin, penicillin or erythromycin. And for detection of this mastitis, we are using California Mastitis Test Kit, CMT kit. Now ginger in 2017 reported huge losses in crossbred cows due to the clinical mastitis at NDRI Karnal. Now how to control this particular mastitis? Before that, what are the sources of infection that we have to see? Sources of contamination, bedding material, that is the where the animals are sitting, contaminated deep cups, Water used for cleaning of udder, it may be contaminated, again that is source of contamination. Water ponds, if the animals are swimming in that water pond and already water pond is infected, then the bacteria may enter inside the udder. Then the skin lesions, teeth trauma, intramammary infections, etc. Next metabolic disorder, that is a retained placenta. Placenta should be removed within 2 hours after parturition. It is a very common practice. But if it doesn't occurs, that placenta, it may remain inside the uterus, and that may be responsible for causing the infection in the uterus and the female reproductive tract, and it may damage that reproductive tract temporarily or permanently. So, it is a very important disorder of the periparturient cows. Now, in the deficiency of selenium particularly, this is one of the mineral, micro mineral required for the body. Now, there is a link which exists between the milk fever and increased retained placenta. Now, if the placenta is not removed within a stipulated time, such animals are very prone to the milk fever. Hypocalcemia, it prevents uterine contraction. That means due to the deficiency of calcium and the muscular dysfunction, contraction of uterine, that is that occurs because of the action of muscles, that is not happening properly, and by which the placenta, it remains inside the uterus. So, a deficiency of calcium, again it is responsible for retention of placenta. So, there is a link. Now, it is responsible for immunosuppression. Progesterone, it inhibits many leukocyte functions, increase plasma level of estrogen and cortisol, that can be correlated as a causative agent of immunosuppression observed at calving. Abomasal displacement. Abomasum in a non-pregnant cow, ventral portion of abdomen nearly on the midline. Advanced pregnancy, uterus slide under the rumen, reducing rumen volume by almost 1/3 at the end of gestation, forcing abomasum forward and slightly to the left side of the cow. After calving, uterus retracts, however, abomasum fails to return back. And what may be the possible reasons? Maybe nutritional factors, decline in the plasma calcium decreases, abomasal contractibility, and presence of volatile fatty acids. So, we have seen up till now important metabolic disorders in the cow. So, I think it is enough for this particular part. Remaining part we will see in the next part, because it is becoming very lengthy. So, friends, thank you very much. We will meet in the next part, next episode.